Welcome back to the Insider's Guide to Custom Homes. I'm Rick Bell, and today's episode is one I've been really looking forward to. We're talking to someone who operates at the very highest level in luxury real estate, not just in South Florida, but on a national and global stage. Phillip Parker is the CEO of brokerage for Douglas Elliman in Florida, and also oversees development marketing across the region, working closely with developers, brokers, and ultra-high net worth clients. Jay, it's great to have you on the show.
Well, Rick, I got to tell you, it's great to be here. It's great to be in Southwest Ranches, and I'm just fascinated by what you and your company are doing here.
Oh, we really appreciate that. We're really proud of the community, and we have a few more to go, and it's kind of melancholy when you get down to the last four after 44 beautiful custom homes. But
44, wow, good number.
There's more to do, so we're not done yet. Before we get into the market, I think it'd be helpful for listeners to understand your perspective a bit. You didn't come into this from a traditional brokerage path. You started on the legal and investment side of real estate. How did that shape the way you look at the business today and ultimately lead you into the role as CEO for Douglas Elliman in Florida?
Well, thanks, Rick. I mean, I wasn't expecting to talk about myself, but I've had a great career path. I graduated from law school, worked at a large law firm, took an opportunity to move up to New York and work with an interesting sort of pan-European wireless investment fund. And ultimately brought me back down here after 9/11. I worked as a lawyer for my own law firm and in the title insurance business. And while doing that, I was very fortunate at the time to work with what I thought were some of the best real estate agents in the market. And I noticed that the role that I played was different than just a traditional lawyer. I was much more involved in their marketing strategies, their relationship management. And I noticed during that time, sort of unconsciously, that the brokerage firms then, many of them were broker owner based. They were organizations where the manager was someone that really couldn't make it as an agent and kind of wanted the sure paycheck. There wasn't really marketing components to the business. There wasn't PR components to the business.
And this is before some of the big players started coming into the market.
Yeah, I mean, there were some big ones then, but they weren't what they are today. And so I ended up participating in broker education platforms and working together with agents to help them build their business. And it was great for me. I loved building that business, and I really loved working with agents. And then about 15 or so years ago, Howard Lorber, our chairman at the time, who remains a dear friend and mentor to me, he reached out to me, and I knew who he was. I was flattered by his reaching out, and I met with him, and he said, "Hey, would you like to come run what was then a company called Douglas Elliman Florida?" And I was flattered, and I thought carefully about it because I knew the chance to work for someone like him was, rare. But I declined the business opportunity because Douglas Elliman in New York was then called Prudential Douglas Elliman. It was part of a master franchise agreement. And I knew that while the opportunity to connect the markets was real, if they weren't really connected, organically connected, it wouldn't work. A year later, after him very much respecting my decision, he called me back and he said he decided to buy out the Prudential franchise agreement and to form Douglas Elliman Real Estate. And what really caught me, and I remember it like yesterday, was when he said, "We're going to open offices in all the markets that our clients want to be in."
So
and
that's New York, it's Florida, Colorado.
New York, Florida, California, Colorado, Texas. And many others, that today we're in and ones that we're looking to go into. And the reason why it resonated with me was because the franchise model that existed at that time and still exists today, while it substantively makes sense, it's harder to connect the dots between disintermediated organizations where ownership is different and the pockets of money are different than it is under one cohesive umbrella. And so I knew that if we controlled the New York business and we controlled the Florida business and we controlled the California business, I knew that we would have more of an impact on driving those business opportunities from market to market. When I pick up the phone and speak to my colleagues in any of those markets, it's organically committing to one another. It's authentically committing to one another. And so we started in Florida with about 100 agents. We did about $300 million in business the year that I came into it. And today, we're doing about 13, 14 billion in business, and we have about 1,700 agents. And we've gone through a lot in the industry, but we've managed to pull away now at the top of the market as Douglas Elliman and really own a position as one of the most coveted, respected, high-end luxury brokerages in the industry. And with a lot of new leadership and new direction, I think we're going to enhance that position as we expand globally. We've just opened offices in Canada. We've opened 14 offices in France, St. Bart's and Monaco. And we're intending to fortify our relationships on the global landscape, but following those same principles of being committed to the markets where our clients want to be. So as opposed to a franchise model where you're just trying to collect revenue through the franchise business, we're strategically focusing on the markets that have connectivity to one another.
Wow. That's just an amazing story. And I guess it's a tribute to you and the rest of your team, how you grew this company from the beginning to where it is today. Congratulations.
Oh, Rick, I'll tell you, and I'm sure you feel this too at Landmark, it's 100% team. I'm one part of the process, and I firmly believe that you're only as strong as your weakest link. So I'm really focused on always making sure that all the links are strong and happy and feel good about what we're fighting for.
Well, that's terrific. So let's discuss the South Florida market. From your vantage point, are we in a typical luxury real estate cycle, or is South Florida fundamentally changed?
I think we have endured fundamental positive change. When I moved here in 1996, I say this all the time, I wonder whether I should, but it was sort of the sunshine state for shady people. The reputation of Miami Beach, South Florida was, nightclubs, drugs, and vacation destination. There's a lot of second homes, third homes, flight capital investment properties. And of course, there were beautiful communities where great people lived, and we're not negating any of that. But even some of the most pristine markets like Palm Beach were really second homes. They were not places where people lived full time, where families were raised, where primary residences were designated. And then tax reform took place. And when tax reform took place and you were no longer able to deduct in certain states your state income tax from your federal income tax, there was a massive shift. We saw particularly high net worth.
And when was this?
This was in the first Trump administration, so about 8 years ago, pre-COVID.
Right, 2018, 2019.
And we saw people that had the financial wherewithal that were also most significantly impacted by this. So if you paid $5 million in New York State income tax, you were not able to deduct that against your federal income tax return. That was a big number. And that could be $1 million for an individual that it's going to hit them harder than it did before. But if you move to Florida, you don't have to pay the $5 million, you pay zero.
That's a great motivator.
So you didn't only save the difference, you saved the whole nut. So the people that were at the top of the financial echelon said, I'm out, and they moved. And then COVID hit. And as devastating as COVID was for many families across the world, there's no doubt that Florida recognized COVID as in a different way than many of the other states in the United States. So we saw mass migration. And the people that could move predominantly were people of wealth, people that could pick up at a moment's notice, people that could buy a home or a condo, move their family. Businesses seemed willing to accept that transition. Many businesses relocated. And so we saw a mass migration, a mass transformation, people calling South Florida and now many parts of the state of Florida home. And the dynamic between a second home, a third home, and an investment property and a primary residence are fundamentally different. And that's why I feel so comfortable that this change is fundamental. First of all, in a moment of financial duress, the last thing that anyone's going to let go is where they live. Second of all, where you live is the most important real estate asset you own. So you're likely inclined to want bigger, better, newer, larger, and more advanced, more qualified. So it gave this market an opportunity to not only see pricing rise to levels that I think for most people is seemingly insane, but also has given our developers, from single-family home builders like yourself to condominium developers, and then everything around the community that falls into the equation, a chance to sort of dream your best dream. Create the most amazing, unimaginable properties. We've had single family homes trade for over $200 million. We've had homes
And these are enormous numbers relative to prior to that.
These are enormous numbers relative to anywhere. I mean, there are very few places in the world where condominiums trade for over $100 million. Wow. And so I think the change is also permanent in nature because you got to really do a lot to get people to pick up their home and move to another state, particularly when it's one as great as the state of Florida, where the sun shines and the beaches exist. And now we have all this other value brought to our state, some of the best culinary institutions in the world. I would argue that Florida, Miami, the south part of Florida leads the culinary trends for the United States right now. And it's not that that's a normal thing, as New York and California.
So it's following the money.
Following the money and the opportunity. You're right. And that's why I tell everybody, Rick, you're 100% right. I'm like, the trends start at the top because the demands of the ultra high net worth individuals and anyone that falls beneath them drives the economy. More restaurants, more shopping centers, more hospitals, more doctors, more nurses, more teachers, more schools, more cultural institutions. Everything has a demand that is met by the unsatiable needs of the wealth. And so it creates opportunities throughout our market, which creates more demand for infrastructure, roads, sewers, bridges, tunnels.
The economy in Florida has never been stronger.
Growing. Yeah. So I think this change is for real. I was with a friend of mine, Anna Bovik, the other day. She's an economist, and she said in a panel that we were on that she believes we're in a 20-year cycle and we're in the first quarter, which if this is just the beginning, buckle in. Because I think the ride's going to be tremendous.
Actually, I was going to be going there, but you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, if we're here, and you think we're only at the beginning of the cycle, it's just mind blowing where we might be 10, 15, 20 years out.
It's you start thinking about where your kid's going to live, where their kid's going to live, where does affordable take place. But I will tell you, the state of Florida has done a good job there too. We have the Live Local Act. We've got initiatives by our state representatives, our local representatives to create housing opportunities for people that aren't in that caliber of wealth. And so I think we're thinking, I think we're smart. I think there's a lot that's accomplished in communities where people are happy. And I can tell you that if you listen to our politically elected officials, our regional elected officials, they seem to be happy. They seem to feel good about where our state is. And that means that they're welcoming businesses, welcoming opportunity, listening to their communities.
Right. And with that, all boats rise. It's not the ultra wealthy. Like you said, it's trickle down economics, but it's the real thing. It's actually happening.
That's not something I've studied. That's just an opinion. But it seems to be true. When we don't have a lot of the same cultural obstacles that many of the other states in the country are facing. We don't have riots in the streets. Our crime rates are low. Our businesses are being welcomed.
Unemployment's very low. It's if you're talented and if you want to get a good degree or learn something or learn a skill, there's a place for you in this community.
That's right. You're right. So I'm bullish. I love being here. I think that the great states of America are wonderful places to live everywhere. I just think that right now this is our time.
Yeah, we're seeing that even here in Broward. I mean, 6-7 years ago, an expensive home was maybe $7 or $8 million. And now East Side, you're looking at 30 to 60 plus $1 million. Out here on the West Side, we're actually building a house right now. It's going to top out over 60 million. We finished one a couple of years ago, topped out similar price tag. So it is happening, not just down Miami, it's happening in Broward. It's certainly happening in Palm Beach County. Palm Beach is insane right now. I kind of feel bad for people that live on the island trying to get in and out, but they still seem to want to be there, and the numbers keep going up.
Look, traffic is not going to get better, but that's why where you live becomes so important. And I've seen Western Broward and Western Palm Beach County communities escalate at a level that is simply mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, here in Landmark Ranches, but you also have Stone Creek Ranches.
Right.
Recently there's been sales $60 million, $55 million. Same thing.
I've seen it. And these are homes that were bought 10 years ago for $6 million that have escalated like crazy because there is something very special about having land, living in communities, privacy, security, and being a part of community is something else that's very important. And there's a lot to be said about everywhere that one chooses to live. But that's why I think like at Douglas Elliman, we try to evaluate our clients' needs before just recommending for where they want to live. Miguel, our agent that we work with here, is why he's such a pro. He really pays attention to the needs of his clients and the needs of his sellers, weaving the needle into understanding where the buyers are going to come from and find the right product for them. And in this community, I mean, I've just driven through here. I can't believe the quality and the size of some of these homes. I mean, you're truly giving somebody a mansion that's like from, Annie.
Well, it's nice to have the land. I mean, our typical lot's 2.5 acres, but we also have 5-acre parcels, and that's where the really large homes come from. 50,000 plus square feet.
Special. It's very hard to get that type of land anywhere
in a gated community.
Yeah,
it's rare.
Look, that's what matters. That people are looking for safety, security, land, size, quality, and I think someone like yourself, and I've seen your homes, you're focused on delivering at a quality level that also is consistent with what you believe in. It's not just like, let me cut corners and get it done. It's deliver a product that you're proud of and that your buyers are going to brag about what they received and how much they like it. So it's success in this business is based upon quality and reputation.
Yeah, we don't take that for granted. I mean, we evaluate where the clients really want to be, but at the end of the day, there's a range. Yeah. And if you're in that range, we can satisfy your need. And that's really what we specialize in, people that really understand what the value is and they're willing to pay for it, because quality is, it's a level up. You do pay for it, but you also get what you pay for. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the homes are amazing. They're magnificent. Maybe one day you get a chance to tour some of the interiors of some of these homes, and probably something that you've seen probably down in Miami and Gables Estates and areas like that. But that's kind of the level you're seeing here.
Listen, I watched the videos of your homes before I came here, and I was just dreaming. The water features, the quality of your architecture, the living spaces, the vehicle parking facilities. I mean, my God, you have not walked away from any opportunity to create.
People love their cars.
Yes, they do.
And it's kind of amazing what we see some of our owners kind of bring in after they move in. I'm a car guy, so I start looking at them and saying, wow, how many more do you have? Oh, I have a whole warehouse with another 25 of them in there. I just swap them out daily. So that's nice.
Must be nice.
It's a beautiful thing. So, you kind of touched on where the buyers are looking. So you're seeing it on the east side, obviously. You see a lot of stuff down in Miami on, like I said, Gables Estates, other areas down in at that area. We see it out west. We're seeing it. I mean, it's pretty much, it's across the board, I think. And are you seeing any kind of trend or how people are prioritizing where they're spending their money? Is it about the future investment value, or is it just about, I want to be in this location and I can afford it and I'm willing to pay that?
Look, I think at the level that you're building, these are people of wealth. They're either going to be comfortable in an urban environment, or they're going to want more privacy, exclusivity, and more space. The things that people are prioritizing is new or fully renovated, and sometimes fully renovated is just simply not as good as new. I think people are looking for land. If you look in the upper echelon, the higher price points, people want land, space, square footage. Obviously out here in Lakewood Ranches and this part of the Broward County, they're not looking for water, but you're looking for quality and water features and amenities. What type of product are you delivering?
We also have sports courts, and we'll dig a lake. If you want some water, we'll make water for you. Right. We'll put a fountain in and light it up. And
I saw that in your homes. I mean, you can see that you have not just thrown something together. It was carefully evaluated to match the very discerning needs of today's buyers. And space is a big one. We're seeing it more and more in many of our markets where you can build this type of property. They're being absorbed quickly. And look, with the trends now in the domestic market, major institutions are relocating here, whether they're tech firms, financial services firms, law firms. And the people that live in those places, if they're working in busy lives, they want to call home a place that they can put their head down and feel safe and be private. And so there's not a lot of communities now that offer that outside of this.
So in the demand side, are you seeing more demand for a pre-built spec home that that's been crafted? And it's a beautiful home, but it's not necessarily exactly to a buyer's taste, or are you seeing more of a lean towards custom and just build it the way they want to see it?
I'm not
Are they willing to wait?
I think it's really both. I think there are certain people that will buy. If they need it now, they'll buy it now, but it doesn't mean they won't subsequently buy another custom home if there are things that they want that they can't get in what's available in the market. I think there are plenty of people that have bought in condos or single family homes just because they couldn't find what they wanted. And then their decision to either build or buy something else is pending the options. I think the single family home market in South Florida right now is one of the hottest asset classes in the country. There's a shortage, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. We're not building any more land.
That's true.
And proximity is important. You're close to a lot of major throughways here. And so it gives you access to things without having to travel through city streets and fighting the kind of traffic. So getting in and out is pretty easy. But, proximity has become important as well. So the further out you go, the harder it is to get to centers of influence, whether it's Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Palm Beach. So you're kind of in a nestled little area.
The one nice thing we do have is a great highway system.
And the Bright Line.
And the Bright Line, for sure. Yeah. So, you can be pretty mobile as long as you don't leave during the peak, obviously the peak times. But
I agree with you. That's what I was saying. Like, it took me, I was in Coconut Grove. I got here real early today.
Yeah, you did.
It took me 40 minutes to get here from Coconut Grove. Now, it's the middle of the day. Obviously, rush hour would be more difficult. But, I think it's a pretty short commute when you want to go out for dinner.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what we have here. We see people all the time. They'll just, they'll either go up to Palm Beach or go down to Miami, go down to Fort Lauderdale. It's just a 20-minute to 30-minute drive, especially if you're going out at night when the traffic is done. But on weekends, no problem at all. So just shifting gears a little bit, you and I often work with the same clients, just at different stages. You're helping them buy and sell, and I'm helping them build. So when it comes to spec homes, where do you see the biggest disconnect between brokers and builders today?
First of all, I'm not working that much with the buyers, right? Like, I'm not selling as much as our agents are. I work more with the developers in the condominium space as a consultant advisor. I think what always is the disconnect between a builder and a buyer, time and cost, right? The builder wants to effectuate the buyer's vision, but sometimes things can't move at the pace that the buyer wants, whether it's supply, whether it's installation timeframes, whether it's material delays. And there seems to always be a rub. If you're waiting to move into a custom built home and the marble's coming from Italy and the marble arrives and it's not right, or it doesn't have the right grains and the book match doesn't work and it has to go back, there's a rub there. I think cost is also a factor. Sometimes people want quality that's not consistent with what they're willing to spend. And it's a hard disconnect between a buyer and a builder to realize that certain engineering and certain, incorporation of space requires that the MEP work and the design work is at a level of sophistication that takes just more time and planning. Big open spaces with no wires and no seams aren't easy to construct. And so I think that, sometimes building a spec home, I often have friends tell me, like, I never realized how involved I was going to be in this process because they don't understand it. So it's there's a reason why you do what you do and do it well, and some people try to do what you do and don't do it as well.
Yeah, we see a lot with the wannabe developers, I guess I call them. They do find an investor, they find a general contractor, they hire an architect, and they think they're a builder developer. And the mistakes some of them make, it's just kind of sad. I mean, I've actually been involved with some people that have asked me to help them out, and it's usually too late.
Right.
They've just made so many major mistakes and blunders, hiring the cheapest subcontractors and trying to do everything about the dollar, not about the end product.
Right. I agree.
But when it comes back to your comment earlier about time, though, it's interesting. I had a client once, and he's the CEO of a major cruise line. I won't say which one. And he wanted to build his house in 15 months. And I was trying to tell him, typically these homes take 2 years from permit, and then it takes another 3 months to 6 months to design and to get the permit. And he just didn't understand it. He said, I can build a cruise ship in 2.5 years. Why does it take so long to build a house? And he just had a very tough time understanding that. And then to another point, the budget, we have a saying, we talk about all the time on this podcast, is designed to budget. And that's where a knowledgeable realtor comes in, is helping the buyer understand why you want to understand what the budget is and make sure it's aligned with what you can actually build for that.
Yeah.
And if you have that going in as one of your tools in your toolbox, Then when you bring on your architect and you really start designing, you've got a builder there, you've got a realtor there, you've got an architect, an interior designer, and everyone's working together to keep that owner, the buyer, aligned with the actual cost and what they want and what they can afford. So there's going to be always some give and take. And it doesn't really matter how wealthy you are. Everyone has a budget. And one of my buyers once told me, everyone has an ouch point. And you'll see them hit it when they go buy a piece of marble, and it's how much per square foot or tile? $400 a square foot for one piece of tile? Is it? I don't make up the prices. So,
I've seen it myself. I mean, I get it. And, everybody wants the best, but they don't always appreciate the cost of what the best is. And so that's also something that I think is a quality in a builder to say, hey, look, let me try to save money in this area, and then have it be spent in other areas. Like when I look at certain properties that have, their chef's kitchen done at a level that's institutional grade, that they're not cutting corners, and then you look at it. I had the other day looking at a project where like the laundry room was literally clad in marble. And I said, well, they're clearly not looking to cut costs when they put marble into the laundry room. So people have expectations, and that's what also I think is exciting about this market is the palette for quality is so strong.
And some of the things that we see, I've been doing this a very, very long time, and I'm just amazed at the products that come on the market all the time. It's feeding into the market, but it's the level of finishes are incredible today.
Yep.
What you can get compared to what it was 5-10 years ago.
Agreed.
So kind of shifting into development, because you said that's kind of your world. How's today's buyer demand changing what developers are building? What's changed?
I mean, I think of the days of these mega mansions, 10,000 square foot condominium units, huge outdoor living spaces, really curated amenitization. It used to be that condominiums had, I know this dates us all, but like shuffleboard courts and card rooms. And
when I used to visit my grandparents back in Sunrise Lakes. Yeah.
Exactly. Like gyms were, rooms that had air conditioning and a couple of pieces of gym equipment in them. Today, you have very sophisticated appointment of amenities. I think that's one thing that it's more than just a catalog for sales. It's really the lifestyle that the community is going to experience. Pickle courts, paddle courts, tennis courts, lap pools, something I didn't even understand. Indoor lap pools has become something that really resonates with the communities that are moving here because number one, it's a great low impact exercise, but it's also covered by, indoor. If you don't want to be outside, because if you care about health and wellness, you don't want to be in the sun for an hour while you're swimming.
Sure, of course.
I never thought about that. But we're thinking about it now. Things like movie theater rooms in condominium buildings, as an example, are not that heavily used. More of a sales tool. So we think about what we can use those rooms for and that space for. And oftentimes, even if you have the room in your house or your condo, you want to have privacy or be away from the family when you have business conferences or conference centers and work areas. People are looking for children's play areas. It builds community, and it's a space where you can feel comfortable leaving your children or your grandchildren to play for a few hours when it's safe and entertaining for them. So I think we're spending a lot more time really, for someone like yourself, being imaginative. What's going to be the next craziest element of lifestyle that's going to attract a buyer from another home or another community? And I think security is also a big factor. Whether there's a need to be scared or not, people like the idea that there's more than just a lock on their door. And that could be interior AV equipment and security systems, as well as there being some type of a obstacle to access, whether it's a manned gate or a gate that just has an access control. I think it's important that people feel that way when they buy into major communities. We're seeing it in condos, we're seeing it in single family homes, but the appetite for size and quality is really through the roof.
So what's your take on buildings with names like Austin Martin Building? And Porsche Tower has something cool. That's got the elevator where you can bring your car up to your apartment. That's very unique. But does a name mean that much to what you're seeing to a buyer profile, or does a product actually back up that name? Typically?
I think there's several components to the branded space. A brand in and of itself is more of a marketing tool. So if you're using an Aston Martin brand or a Porsche brand, as incredible as the Gil Desert and the Deservators are, he has them in the Porsche Tower, the Bentley Tower. There are people that like that and think that that's super cool. There's an element of privacy that's secured through that. But I think those are more marketing tools than they are quality definers. When you get into the branded hospitality space, whether it's a Four Seasons, a Ritz-Carlton, a Faena, an Edition, any one of those brands, and we're working today with Mr. C, the Cipriani family, and we're doing several projects with a health and wellness concept called The Well. I think there's more to the equation. It's not just marketing. You're offering a quality of life. If it's managed by a hospitality firm, whether it's one of the Marriott brands, the Four Seasons brand, there's a lot to be said because the quality that survives the construction and the delivery is based on the property management. And there's something very meaningful to that. If it's a wellness concept, similar. They're putting a time and money into ensuring that there's elements beyond the real estate that complement lifestyle. So I'm a firm believer in many of those brands. Whether it's supporting it in marketing, which is less sort of long-term oriented than if it's supporting it in hospitality, which I believe in much more firmly. I think brands are exciting. They're good to work with. They bring another layer of expertise to the equation in working with them to kind of refine and ensure that the product is extraordinary.
You're seeing that, like I said, in the Ritz-Carlton type of thing, Four Seasons, the hospitality angle. It's more than an angle. It's their brand, and that's just how they treat people. And I think those kind of amenities are definitely appealing to a lot of the people in the market that have the dollars and want to be in a condominium. And actually, some of our buyers own those condominiums, and they come out. They go on the weekends and they come here during the week. So you get a mix of that. And I heard you mention recently that there's a real shift towards larger properties, more land, more privacy, more scale, and at the same time, a bit of a shortage of that type of product. Are developers keeping up with this demand, or are they still lagging behind?
I think that this caliber of buyer is looking for all of those things, size and land and quality. I think the pace is pretty good. I think the demand is extraordinary, and I think that we're probably going to see continued demand. I'm bullish on the market. I'm particularly bullish on the high end. And I think that, like I tell every real estate conference or panel I speak on, if you're in the real estate business in South Florida, you're in a good place to be.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And like I said, it's good and only getting better over time. So, you're also you're right in the thick of things. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. And regarding the future of South Florida, what needs to continue for South Florida to stay on its current trajectory? I mean, what is the driving factor today that's going to continue to accelerate and sustain this type of growth for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
I think the sustainability of this market is what's most attractive. I mean, this is sort of like one of those things where, you sit in another domestic market, you look to your left, you look to your right, one of you is going to be living in Florida in the next year. When your friends move, when they brag about their quality of life, when you see the advancement of our market, we're hosting F1 this weekend here. We have some of the best sports teams in the professional sports industry. Look, you got the Dolphins, you got the Panthers, you got the Canes, you got the Heat, you've got now, Major League Soccer with a brand new stadium here. It's pretty hard to beat lifestyle here. And I think that when the world kind of gave us the strength to recognize all the great things that the state of Florida has to offer, it's contagious. And so that has sort of fortified what we've all believed in. I mean, I moved here in 96 and there was an absolute determination in my life to live here because I felt how great it was to be here. I wanted to enjoy those, November afternoons when it was crisp, crisp air in the air and beautiful sunshine days. And I quite frankly don't mind those heated up days of summer to go jump in the ocean. And I love that we've now had all of that sort of filled in with all these great compliments to lifestyle. Some of the best of everything is here. And I think it's just going to get better and better and better. So I don't see our politics changing. I think people like it too much to try to change it. I think that we're smart about the way that we build. So we're doing everything in our power to respond to the threats of, the environment, whether it's hurricanes or flooding or those types of things. I think we're building product that can probably withstand as big a threat as you'll throw at us. Obviously, there's parts of the infrastructure that can't withstand that, so it's something we don't want. But I think that we're becoming a very smart community. And I think that, as more and more people are welcoming here to invite new businesses and new educational institutions, you have Vanderbilt moving to West Palm Beach. You have, I heard, another major institution moving to Miami. I think the world just gets better and better for Floridians. And so the only thing we're going to have to deal with is traffic. And I think that that's sort of answered by these pockets of lifestyle that exist in almost every community.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to leave your community.
That's right.
A lot of people work where they live today. The remote ability for some of your people, particularly here in Landmark, and we have people that are very, very high level executives. And yeah, they do have to go out for the occasional meeting, but a lot of their work is just transacted from their home or from the neighborhood. So yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle shift.
I agree. And look, as you said, I mean, I know people that go to the beaches for the summer. I mean, for the weekend, from West Broward. They live in beautiful homes like yours, and they enjoy the space and the privacy and the serenity. And then when they want a little action, they go to a pied-à-terre in Fort Lauderdale. And unlike Mayor Mandami, we don't tax people on their pied-à-terres here.
So let's just get into, it's a little bit of rapid fire. So what are the biggest mistakes a seller would make? What's the biggest mistakes you see sellers make?
Have no rational sense of price. I think it's, I think it's a realtor too. You give somebody a price that's not going to sell, you'll end up being the third realtor, the realtor that lost out. You can't be egocentric about your property. You've got to be aware of its flaws, aware of the market conditions, and aware of what it's really worth.
There is a top. I mean, let's face it. And I see this again with wannabe developers, and they just put these astronomical prices. And I know the market, and I know what we'll build a house for. And then when it's double that number or 75% more, I just shake my head because people aren't stupid. They have a pretty good idea of the market. So yeah, we do see that from
look, the market. The market valuation is pretty consistent. You look at what the homes in your community have traded for. You look at the age. You look at the finishes. You got to be sensible about that. If you've got a 30-year-old home with 30-year-old finishes and 30-year-old appliances and need a new roof, and you want to sell for the same brand new construction house next door to you, you're in la la land.
Yeah, as I say, you can't put perfume on a pig.
Yeah,
it's not going to help. That's a
big mistake that sellers make. Frankly, and I know this is lobbying for my industry, but I think cutting commissions is ridiculous. We don't agree to it in 99% of the cases. The value should be driven by the execution of a real estate professional, and you can do that and negotiate that by offering the full vig on the commission and then negotiate if you don't get your price. But to try to draw people to your property as a seller by not offering that commission is just foolish.
Yeah, I mean, the value of a good broker from both the buying and the selling side is establishing the real value and having people understand, if it is too high, here's what we should be able to get it for. Or conversely, if we're asking too much, you got to be prepared to, make it more realistic.
And look, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a client of ours, a condo that he sold the other day, and he said, look, some of it's luck. And I said, look, luck can go both ways. You could get lucky and sell your property within the time frame that you want to sell it at or around the price that you wanted, or it could sit around for a long time and not trade, and that would be problematic. So the market is often dictated by the buyer. And if your property is not selling, it's probably price.
So what's the one thing that a buyer consistently underestimates?
Probably the amount of work they're going to have to put into a property after they buy it. Doesn't matter what.
It's never going to be perfect, is it?
It's never perfect. And even if it is perfect, there's going to be things that aren't perfect for you.
Especially a spec house. I mean, you go buy a house that's pre-done, you're never going to get those finishes
right. As good a builder as you are, nothing is made to last forever. Things go wrong. So be aware of that. Expect that. Know that things are going to break.
There's maintenance required for sure.
Maintenance is required. So if you're a first-time homeowner, be aware of it. Maintenance is
Hey,
required.
even if you're building a $60 million house, even more to be aware of, you're going to need a staff. You're going to need 3, 4, 5 different people to help you maintain that house on a regular basis. They don't have to live there, but they've got to be there to help keep that property in
upkeep is critical.
Yeah, so that's definitely something that buyers should definitely keep in mind when they build these mega houses, that there is maintenance involved.
But we love buyers, so bring them all in.
So what's the most exciting market in South Florida right now? If you had to choose one area.
Well, that's a tough one. I cannot. That is just too hard. I love what you're doing out here in West Broward. I really think it's phenomenal that you have.
Because you see a full spectrum. I mean, you see more than most.
I do see a lot, and that's why it's impossible. I love what's going on in Boca Raton. I love what's going on in West Palm Beach. I love what's going on in Jacksonville. I mean, I'm really engaged by Jacksonville. They're rebuilding an entire city.
It's amazing. My daughter lives in St. Augustine, and I remember when she moved up there about 8 years ago, and I'm saying, this place is going to explode. And today, from St. Augustine's almost one continual suburb,
right,
and blends right into Jacksonville today.
Look, I'm blown away by the quality that we're seeing in Miami Beach and Coconut Grove and Edgewater. I'm impressed. I am genuinely impressed by the ability of the developers and candidly all of the real estate professionals in this market to raise the bar and meet the demand and the expectations of the world's most discerning clients. I mean, it is not easy to have a perfect experience, and we continue to do it time and time again. We continue to deliver product in all of the markets that is mind-blowing, whether it's a renovation of a historic home, the creation of a brand new mega mansion like you're doing here, or the delivery of a fascinating 10,000 square foot penthouse mansion in the sky in Miami Beach. Our developers are making their mark and really looking. I commend them, and you takes a lot of vision to create some of these things and to have the gumption to say, I'm going to throw it all on the line and go for the stars. But it just keeps getting absorbed. When I remember years ago when I was a lawyer and they had product on Miami Beach that they were going to ask $1,000 a foot for, and people were like, wow, $1,000 a foot. These are numbers that the world has just never seen before. Well, sure enough, today we're seeing product that sells closer to $10,000 a foot. It's
mind-blowing. Exactly.
It's mind-blowing. But it's when you sit back and think about it, there are markets in the world like Monaco and New York City, where when the demand for the product outpaces the availability of the product, and the product is as good as it is, sky's the limit. A lot of money in the world.
And that's kind of why we love doing a spec home. Every once in a while we'll do it, and not so much because we have to, because it's fun. And you really get to stretch your imagination and put something out there that someone probably has never thought of.
Look, Rick, I don't think I'd be as excited as I am selling real estate in suburban Michigan, or Minnesota. I think that we are, as I said at the beginning of the call, it's a good time to be in the real estate market in South Florida. We get to create the best, sell the best, curate the best, be a part of the best, enjoy the best, meet great people every day, and really welcome new people all the time. I mean, this is the right time at the right place.
Well, Jay, this has been a fascinating conversation. And before we wrap up, for someone listening who's considering building or buying in this level, how does Douglas Elliman approach that process, and where do you feel your team brings the most value to the client?
Look, we use data. We are professionals. We understand the competitive landscape. We understand the buyer profile. We understand what that buyer's looking for, what that buyer can afford, and what matters most to them. We're not pointed to tell somebody that they should only look at one thing. They need to understand the market in the best way possible to make informed, calculated decisions. Obviously, when you're a listing agent, you want to represent that property as best you can. You want to understand that property's qualities, the construction details. You want to understand the more value you can bring to the customer is related to the more investment you've made in the property that you're selling or the client that you're representing. And I think that that's what we focus on, is ensuring that our agents are not just commission chasers. They're not just out there to show property. They're to inform their customers on what makes that property better than another or worth the price that they're paying. And I'm proud of what we've built, and I'm proud of the company that we're a part of. And I'm particularly proud of the agents. They're really good at what they do. And they continue to break records in every market that they're in.
Wow. That's just a great perspective on your company, how it's started, where it's gone, and where it's going. I mean, I wish you the continued success, and obviously, you're doing everything right. And again, it was a pleasure having you here, and I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your ideas with our listeners.
Good luck, Rick, and I'm thankful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks again for joining us, Jay. And to our listeners, build it right, build it informed, build it the Landmark way. Relax and enjoy the journey.